Board game! My friend Morgan is staying with us for a few days, just kind of taking a break from the city, as I think anyone should do, and so we're always happy to host him. And so we got to play Terra, which, as a matter of fact, is the first game that has been played so far with my new copy of Terra, and I've never owned a copy of Terra, so it's probably only like the fourth or fifth game I've ever actually gotten to play with it. And I gotta say, for a game that has not received the thorough amount of playtesting that something like Rum Run has, it holds up pretty well. It's a fun game. It's quick. It takes, especially with, I think it works really well with two players. I've only played with more than two players a handful of times. 3 or 4. Yeah, again, I played like 5 times in total. But with 2 players, you do a radius 3 board. Look at that other video I was putting together if you want to see how to play. And then, yeah, it takes like 25 minutes to go through a whole game, maybe 40 if you're really thinking about it. Building this world, putting down your temples, trying to enhance the value of each temple. I think it works. The core mechanics there really have something kind of special and unique. It doesn't remind me of any other games, but it all works within this theme of being a god, creating a world, wanting to get worshippers, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, you know, we just talked about a few things that I might adjust while ordering another copy or something like that. Yeah, and what's great too is it's just barely, when you finish the game, it feels just barely too quick, which I think a lot of great games have that sensation of, kind of like Agricola, where like right at the end you're like, oh, I just wanted to do this one other thing. And what that actually leaves you with by the end of the game is kind of a sense of like, oh, I want to try again to see if I can, you know, feel more accomplished. And so I think any good game constantly leaves you with that sense of like just barely not quite satisfying, because yeah, that makes it fun, because you constantly feel like it's possible to reach that level of satisfaction. So yeah, that's good. I think we got that going for it. I don't think for you haven't played Terra, but here's a couple notes that I guess are more for me than for you. We based on this playing, I don't think that temples should be resonant to each other, because you end up with a problem where all the temples are next to each other. The game naturally, as is, kind of encourages you to cluster temples together, because if you can get a bunch of calm, resonant land hexes together, then it's really easy to be like, oh, well, I'll just make a bunch of calm temples here, here, and here. And so if I don't want to say that you need temples to be at least like 2 spaces apart, like Catan, the way buildings and cities are done, because the board sometimes just, it would be really hard to get those temples down. Now, I want players to feel like they can pretty much always put a temple down. But if I just say that temples don't count for each other, I think that lack of an extra point will be enough to encourage players to branch out a little bit and find like the best locations. Similarly with the source, like I think I'd been saying, the source is resonant to everything. That encourages people to cluster around like the very beginning of the game, when I want people to go explore, you know, go around the world, build as much as possible. So yeah, I think that's a couple of little changes I'll make, which is great, because those are changes that you know, the rules need to change, but I don't need to change any of the pieces themselves. And then, yeah, what Morgan and I were saying, it's interesting that there's some upgrade cards that the gods, you know, you become the god of different things: music, dreams, death, destruction, which is really fun by the end of the game to say, you know, oh, I was the god of, yeah, music and dreams and war or whatever. I think that's really cool and provocative. So, yeah, I think that we were saying that there's certain upgrades that it's really frustrating to see them appear at the end of the game, because originally when Dan and I first designed the game, it was just 18 upgrade cards. You could look at all of them, and I thought that was kind of overwhelming, especially for people who hadn't played the game before, to be like, oh god, which one do I want? And so I just have them sorted into decks, where there's 3 decks, so at any given time there's 3 different upgrade cards available that you can get. And so yeah, so Morgan and I were saying there's a couple cards in there that are very frustrating to see at the end of the game, because you're like, god, that would have been so useful at the beginning of the game, not useful now. And then sometimes if you don't want to use a refresh action, it's just sitting there kind of like stopping you from looking at other upgrades. So we were saying there's a few upgrade cards that should by default like definitely happen early in the game. And so I think there's a couple ways to accomplish that. You could do the thing that like Agricola does, where all the different cards have like a certain period of time that they're going to come up in, like early game, mid game, late game, similar to the decks in Twilight Struggle. So we could just make sure that that's happening, or I could keep it really simple and just say, hey, you know what, these 4 upgrade cards, like these are the starting upgrades. Like those are there at the beginning of the game, no matter what, every game, and then all the other ones are randomized. So I'll play with a couple of different ways to do that. But yeah, Terra, you know what? I think this is a great game. I think it's 5 stars with a confidence of 5, and I think anyone can play it. I love, again, I like making flexible games similar to Rum Run. There's a very simple core, almost like chess-like abstract version to it, and then there's a much more thematic, chance-based, possibly aggressive version you can play, and then there's a couple little variants. It's all there in the rules. So, and I think it looks beautiful. Alice Blank made gorgeous artwork. Morgan made the box art look fantastic, as he always does. And yeah, maybe someday I will go to a board game convention and I'll bring Rum Run and Terra Neo and Shima, and probably not Gulp. That was my first little card game thing. But yeah, I think these things are really cool, and I've gotten really wonderful feedback from people who've played them. So it'd be great to explore that more. That's board games for now.